go.
Okay. Good morning, everybody, and welcome back. Today we're working on a Craftsman chainsaw that just simply won't run. When I got a good look at it, I can see she's close. She sputters and kicks a little bit, but she won't start, and there's no tuning that'll save it. So we're going to go ahead and rebuild the carb, and this is something you can do at home pretty easily. So all you new guys, go ahead and subscribe. Let's get started. Not just too to the point. Good morning, everybody, and welcome back. Today we're working on a Craftsman chainsaw that just simply won't start. It kicks and it sputters and it tries, but there's just nothing to it. And there's no amount of adjusting that's going to save it. So we're going to go ahead and do a rebuild on the carburetor real quick. And this is something you can do at home if you're patient and have a couple of tools. So let's get started. There you go. Now we got a whole lot of light on the subject. So the first thing we're going to do is pull the cover off. And for that, you're going to need, I think this is a T27. It's either a 25 or a 27. But you'll find if you're doing yours at home, chainsaws are really intimidating to work on when you're not used to it. But they're not a big deal. It's just the parts are a little bit smaller and it's a little harder to get to them. So just that quick, the carburetor's not bolted to anything. Now it is all hung up in the choke and the linkage and everything. And every chainsaw is just a little bit different. If we take a look at this one on the inside, you can see it's got the little hook. So the trick is to accelerate it, and that'll loosen the hook up. I can't do it one-handed, but that's what you want to do. And there we go. And with the trigger pulled a little bit, it popped right off. So now the choke is pretty easy peasy on this one. It's a free range. So now on this one, you can see somebody already did the fuel lines. And before we take the fuel lines off, we want to loosen the gas cap. Make sure there's no pressure in there. It's always best to empty the gas before you start. Now keep track of where your fuel lines went. Make sure you take lots of pictures like right here. This is a perfect time to get lots of pictures, and even before you took the linkage off. I'm going to gently remove the fuel line. There we go. Semi-gently remove the fuel line. Now we don't have to pop the linkage off for this, but I'm going to put the carburetor in the cleaner. Putting the carburetor in the cleaner is semi-helpful. Now we'll switch over to a Phillips. And pull the carburetor apart real quick. Now what happens is people leave gas in these all summer and then pull them out in the fall and expect them to work like they're brand new. And you're going to have a combination of old gas, and they're just tired from just sitting there. If you were to start your chainsaw once a month or twice a month, I'd say twice a month would be better. So there's our metering diaphragm. And again, take pictures here. And note that the gasket, there's a secondary gasket. It goes gasket and then metering diaphragm and then back in place. Let's go to the other side and take this apart. And to look at it, see the flaps are bent just a little bit from time. Now carefully take the gasket off. We might use it, we might not. And now I'm going to go ahead and clean the parts up on the outside just a little bit and then I'm going to run the body through the ultrasonic. And that's just because I like to have them nice and clean. And there could be little clogged passages in here. It doesn't hurt to make sure everything's as clean as possible. So we'll be back in a minute. Now that everything's nice and cleaned up, let's get her back together. So the first thing we'll do is go ahead and put the metering diaphragm back on. Let's not put her on backwards. And we've got a new one, of course. It comes with the kit. This carburetor in particular is a Walboro WT324. Now, if yours is a similar one, there's a little number on the side right here. It will tell you exactly what your carburetor is. Is it upside up? Nope, that's upside down. There you go. See, it's a 324. And if you don't use a screw gun every day, use a regular screwdriver to put these screws back in. You don't want to strip it. Even though I replace carburetors quite a bit, and I use aftermarket when I replace them. The original carburetor for this is very expensive. Okay, that's ready to go. Let's get the new diaphragm on the top, the fuel diaphragm. Okay, let's get the rest of it back together. First we go gasket. Next we put the metering diaphragm on. And now let's gently roll her over onto the carburetor, make sure everything stays together. And it did. Get her nice and snug. Check to make sure everything looks like it's working okay. And it looks good. Let's get her back on the chainsaw and see if she runs. Okay, let's get this whole shooting match together. First thing we'll do is get the linkage started. With the carburetor out here where we can get to it. Let's slide the carburetor in. Now, if you remember, we're going to accelerate this a little bit, pull it back. We're going to hold the carburetor up at the angle it needs to be on. Let's accelerate some. And click her back into place. She's just almost there. And again, take your time and don't push anything hard. Because if you're pushing really hard, something's wrong. You're not lined up right or something. I'm just putting the tiniest little bit of pressure on that. But there we go. Okay. That's the return line. Here's our fuel line. Let's put our choke back in place. Choke's really easy to forget. And when you put the air box back on, you're going to cover all this stuff up, so you're not going to be able to see to do anything. Are you in? You're almost in. Okay, now you're in. Get everything lined up just right. When you pull the choke, it turns the engine on. Okay, we're pulling these studs farther forward. We're double checking everything, making sure the linkage isn't hanging up on anything, and it's not. So we'll pull those forward and put our base back on. And that's it, we've got a carburetor. Once we get this bolted down, supposedly we could put gas in her and she'll run. We may have to do some adjustments. Notice I'm being very, very tender with the screw gun. Make sure she's nice and snug. And that's just about it. Let's put some fuel in her and put her on the floor and test her. So let's give her a run. Full choke. Notice now everything feels pretty good when it's running. Man, that thing feels happy. I ran this carburetor through an ultrasonic, but soaking it for a couple hours in carburetor cleaner would do the job. So if you're doing yours at home, I would recommend just simply replacing the carburetor. Just take lots of pictures taking it apart and be patient. If you want to get brave, it'll be a quarter of the cost to buy the kit and just simply put new diaphragms in. If you clean it up real good, it'll work fine. So, all you new people out there, go ahead and subscribe. If you made it this far, you might as well. We'll see you next time.